Hi, I'm John Maxwell. When the top companies in the world are looking for trainers, speakers, and coaches, there's one name that stands above the rest, and that's Maxwell Leadership. Our certified team members have gotten proven results for companies all over the globe, and our reputation, I'm proud to say, is second to none. Some of our members have risen to the top of their profession, including the one you're going to meet today. I proudly introduce you to my friend Bob Fabian Zinka.
Welcome to the Leadership and Success Podcast with your host, Coach BZ, where we help you lead with purpose and succeed with impact. If you're ready to grow into the kind of leader others want to follow, this podcast is for you. If you're determined to elevate your success and leave a lasting legacy, this podcast is for you. As my mentor, Dr. John C. Maxwell reminds us, everything rises and falls on leadership. Our goal is simple: to inspire you, challenge you, and equip you with insights that can transform the trajectory of your leadership journey. Welcome aboard to another episode of the Leadership and Success Podcast with Coach BZ.
Harry, my sponsor, says it's time to start. So we were just debating, should Harry get up and introduce me? And I decided that he didn't have to do that because he's so comfortable there with his laptop. It seemed cruel to make him get up. So instead, I'll introduce Harry. This is Harry. In case you don't know Harry, Harry has been at Google for how long now? 8 months. Harry is the model-based testing guy, among other amazing things, and collector of testing-related lyrics up on his website, and is now blushing, I think, just a little bit. So I'm here thanks to... I want to tell a story from a workshop I used to teach a long time ago that blew my mind. I was teaching a class for Agile coaches to learn how to design their own teaching exercises. This team had designed an exercise and put some of the other coaches who were in the class through this exercise. And remember, everyone involved is an Agile coach. They are there to learn how to help other people see what they see with respect to Agile. So the leaders of the exercise sit these people down and they start throwing random tasks at them. Here, blow up these balloons. Here, twist these pipe cleaners. Here, fold this paper. Here, roll these. No, that's not important anymore. Roll these dice. And it's total chaos. The entire room is laughing as they're doing this. And they say, okay, so round 2, instead of walking up to you and just telling you to do stuff, you get to be a self-organizing team. And so then we do round 2, and the participants have come up with a backlog system. They have the conversations to prioritize the backlog, all the things that you would expect. The mind-blowing part is in the debrief, the participants said, here's the thing though, I liked round 1 better. You liked chaos better? Yeah, it was so much easier. I didn't have to think. I just did whatever you told me to do, and that's what good looked like. Why is it so discomforting? Because comforting illusions are comforting.
All right, welcome to another very special edition of the Leadership and Success Podcast. I am your host, Coach BZ. We have a very, very special guest today. So for those who've been watching the show for a while, you kind of know what to do. We're going to start with what we call a moment of gratitude. This is where we take just a moment every time we meet to be grateful for something. So if you would maybe close your eyes, put yourself in your happy place, take a deep breath and think about one thing that you are grateful for. I must tell you, since Juneteenth, there is just recently, July 4th, our 250th in this country, if you can believe that. I am really, really grateful for freedom. I think there is just nothing like it. I am so grateful to be a free man in the home of the brave and the land of the free. So grateful for all of the people who have served in our armed forces, any branches, including the newest one, which is Space Force. Myself, I am a U.S. sailor, and just grateful for the young men and women who go out there and fight for our freedom. Wow, I'm so grateful for that. So let us know in the comment what you are grateful for, where you are connecting from, what city, what state, and if outside of the US, since we've gone global now, also which country. And if you have a question for my guest, make sure to type it on in the comments, whether on LinkedIn or on YouTube. Okay, without any further ado, let me see if I can properly introduce our guest today. She's very special to me. Our guest, we used to be colleagues. She was the vice president of engineering R&D at Pivotal, a company at the time owned by EMC. I guess Dell now owns the brand. But anyway, I am really excited to welcome Elisabeth Hendrickson. I believe she's a Silicon Valley giant to the Leadership and Success podcast. And Elisabeth is a technology executive, engineering leader, author, speaker, and founder of Curious Duck Digital Laboratories. With more than 30 years of experience in software engineering, quality, and organizational leadership, she has served as the VP of R&D, VP of Engineering, and advisor of technology leaders building high-performing teams and sustainable engineering culture. Many in the technology community know Elisabeth as the author of the influential Explore It, a landmark book on exploratory testing that continues to shape how software professionals think about quality and risk. She is also the co-author of the upcoming book Signal and Levers: System Thinking Tools to Unblock Software Delivery, which explores how leaders can identify the right signal, improve decision making, and build organizations that deliver value predictably. I think we're going to have a surprise guest when we start talking about the book today. But whether you lead sellers or software engineer or cybersecurity team or enterprise organization, I believe that Elisabeth's leadership philosophy will remind you today that technology is powered by people. And great system enable great people to do their best work. So some of what you're going to be learning today is why great leaders focus on system instead of simply solving symptom, but also why better system ultimately create better teams and better leaders. So I'm especially excited to explore how Elisabeth's ideas on system thinking apply not only to software engineering, but also to cybersecurity, military leadership, believe it or not, and mission success. So without any further ado, please help me welcome to the Leadership and Success podcast, the one and only Elisabeth Hendrickson. All right. Good morning, Elisabeth. How are you doing today?
Good morning. That was amazing. I've never had an intro quite like that ever in my entire career, complete with the stadium cheers.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, it's a great honor and privilege to be talking to you. This is just awesome. So, how are you doing today? What is one thing you are grateful for?
Um, I am inspired by your gratitude of freedom, and I am grateful for community as
Yes.
a general concept. For so grateful for all of the communities that I belong to. But I have to say,
Yes.
as a community, pivotal is how you and I know each other,
Mhm.
and I am
Yeah.
particularly grateful to you. What other people don't know is before we started, as you were preparing, you did the most thorough deep dive of my website that I think anybody has done in well
Thank
over a
you.
year, including me. And you found stale links that go nowhere, that have been stale for over a year and nobody had detected it. And
Yes.
I was able to fix it before we went live.
Wow.
So
That's
I
a good
am
exploit.
I am grateful for community, but I am particularly grateful to you. You're amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. This is really awesome. No, it's really great to see everything you've done since our times at Pivotal. My goodness, that's great. And you also got a Silicon Valley legend to actually write the forward for your upcoming book. How in the world did you manage to do that?
Gene Kim is a wonderful person,
Wow.
and he was so supportive of the book.
That's
IT
amazing.
Revolution is his
Yeah.
company, and
Yeah.
he was so supportive of the book from the very beginning. So supportive that Signals and Levers and the Phoenix Project actually exist in
Yes.
the universe, and we had a crossover of one of the two of the characters.
That's really
Um,
awesome.
so I think that might have had something to do with it.
Yeah, and I know he's a prolific author as well. We've been connected, I think, since our time at Pivotal. I'm trying to get him on the podcast. Hopefully, he's going to be here soon. But yeah, just a Silicon Valley legend. That's all we have to say about it. So, what is something about you I like to ask? Most people may not know something unique, maybe a superpower, or something most people just don't know when they first meet you.
I never know what to say about myself at all, ever. And so I really don't know what it might be interesting to anybody that they don't know about me. I I'll say this. My car is one that most people don't predict when they meet me. I drive a little two-seater convertible roadster that I just
Mhm.
love. And so you can picture me tootling
Yes.
around in California in my little two-seater roadster.
That is, yeah, but I think that's one of the first electric cars that Tesla made, right?
Oh, yeah. No, sorry. Not a Tesla Roadster. I mean, in the category
Oh,
of
okay, okay.
cars, it's
Got
a
it.
little.
Got
The
it.
thing about Roadsters is that you can really feel the road. And my
Yes,
mother, who was shorter than me and very petite,
yes.
I got this from her because she drove a little two-seater Roadster for my entire life, little
Wow.
convertible, and I
That's,
didn't understand it at all until I inherited her car. And
wow.
now I'm on my second one. Her car was the first, and I that one eventually went the way
Sure.
that cars go. And so now I have mine that I bought, new because I
Wow, that's
realized
wonderful.
the appeal.
Yes. I guess now that our second daughter, our last one, is going to be going to college this fall, no, maybe we're going to get rid of the minivan and I'm going to maybe go for a sports car or something. So that sounds appealing to me. So let's go back to your origin story because every great leader has an origin story. You often joke that you wrote your first line of code in 1980. Wow, that's so long ago. And
Old.
almost immediately you found your first bug. Looking back, what did that first bug teach you that still influence your leadership today?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't actually remember exactly what my first bug was, but I do have to paint a picture for you because I do have
Yes.
some lessons learned from that time.
And also being a woman in the tech world, especially back then. Wow.
Things are actually in some ways worse now, but I'm gonna skip that,
Yes.
and instead, let's talk about the TRS-80 and
Hmm.
basic, not Visual Basic, basic,
Yes.
basic. And I will be surprised if very many people who are listening to this actually know
Yeah.
what basic looked like, but you had to number your lines. And
Wow.
so there are actually three things that I learned from that time. One, it involves line numbering because as a
Mm.
naive first-time programmer, I made my first line 1 and my second line 2 and my third line 3, and I had numbered my lines. And
Yes.
then I had to edit my program. And then I spent another 20 minutes renumbering all of my lines. Oh, and editors were not like they are today. Like, I think I had to edit it like one line at a time. I don't actually remember the details at all because this was 1980. Um,
Yes.
so the first thing is to never assume that I'm gonna get it right the first time and always create space
Mm.
for the things that I learn as I go along this journey. So that
Yes.
was lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 was about reading code because I suspect my first bug was probably when I typed in because what you would do, you get these computing magazines
Hmm.
and there was no, like, copy and paste. That was not a thing. So you'd get these computing magazines, and then you would type in the program listing that was in this magazine. I know it sounds
Wow.
like caveman times, but type it in. And I discovered that it was so important that I actually fully understand what I was typing in because that's
Hmm.
probably where my first bug was in mistyping something and something was outside of a loop that was supposed to be inside or vice
Wow.
versa. I don't know. But reading code and reasoning about what it's actually doing is
Yes.
an absolutely critical skill to develop. So I definitely learned
Man,
that in 1980.
how much things have changed. I don't know
So
if you remember one of the first languages I learned, but with time I think it's completely dead now. Was Fortran, right? I think
uh-huh.
it's for formula translation, I think. But anyway, completely dead now. Now, when I came to Pivotal in 2014, it was the first time I was exposed to the agile methodology and all of that. And XXXP, I guess you guys were very, very good with that. And I remember how you used to do like pairing and all that. All completely new to me. I had to learn all that. I'm so glad I did because pretty much everybody else in Silicon Valley they pretty much use the same philosophy when it comes to developing code. How did you get to become an expert in XP?
Um, I hesitate to call myself an expert
Nah,
in
you definitely
anything, but
are.
that's neither here nor there. So funny story. I met Rob Mee, who ended up being the CEO
Yeah.
of Pivotal. I met him. I didn't look up the year, but early 2000s sometime at a little peer conference that Brett Petticord, a colleague of mine,
Yes.
and someone I respect tremendously, he was running this tiny peer conference and he invited me and I came. That peer conference turned out to be that was a life-changing moment for me right
Wow.
there, going to that little conference. And so the series of random events that had to line up
Hmm.
in order for me to be in that room was kind of amazing. And I'm so grateful that I was there. So
Wow.
Ward Cunningham, the guy who invented the wiki and many other
Yeah.
things, Ward Cunningham was there, and Rob Mee was
Wow.
there, and a bunch of other people. That was the conference where I first saw Selenium, the test automation
Hmm.
framework, being demonstrated. So anyway, Rob Mee, as he was talking about how his groups worked, I already was familiar with the principles of XP. I had taken
Hmm.
a class that Josh Karyevsky had that was immersive and taught XP. So I
Yes.
was familiar with the concepts, but I could not, I wanted to work that way on something real. And the more that Rob described how his company, which was at the time Pivotal Computer Systems,
Hmm.
not Pivotal Labs, or the Pivotal that later existed, the
Yes.
more he described how this little consulting company worked, the more I wanted to weasel my way onto one of
Wow.
his projects. And so eventually that
Amazing.
happened. I found myself on two of the origin story projects that
Hmm.
Rob would talk about. And I learned so much
That's
about
amazing.
not only the mechanics of extreme programming, but also being able to observe it from the inside helped me understand why it worked so incredibly well. So
That's so powerful.
fast forward, I ended up doing a lot of little projects. I would come in as a friend of Pivotal periodically. I didn't work there, but I would come in and do a project
Mhm.
and then go away. And so I got to deepen my skills in extreme programming,
That's
and then
amazing.
ultimately joined Pivotal in 2012 to work on
Yeah.
Cloud Foundry. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I remember Cloud Foundry. Yeah. And I joined 2 years after you. Like I think remember our mission at Pivotal. It was to teach the world how to do modern software. I believe that was it, right?
Transform the way the
That's
world
from the
builds
world.
software.
That's right.
Yes,
And then for
yes,
me, it was to do it securely. I just added security
yes.
to that. That was so much fun. Because I remember even when you did your Google Talk, I'm going to show you a very small clip of that, which will be the entire clip will be available on my LinkedIn page. But even back then, you were talking to Googler, which was back then, I think, the equivalent of what TEDx is now. And I think there was only one person in the room that even knew what XP was or was working on a project towards it, right? And that's kind of amazing because today pretty much everybody does that. That's quite amazing. Now you've been a programmer, a tester, engineering executive, a vice president of R&D, a founder, advisor, author, and man, is there anything you don't do? A coach, and man, do you have time to sleep? My goodness, which transition stretch you the most as a leader?
Definitely, it was our shared experience at Pivotal. I ended up being the VP of R&D for the data products, and
Mhm.
that was, first of all, the largest organization that I
Yeah.
have managed, and second of all, it not only was it a distributed organization, relatively large. I think I
Hmm.
was responsible for like 170 some odd people,
Yeah.
working on three mission critical data products.
Yeah. I think
So
that we had people from Europe and from China too, if I recall.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We had a big contingent in China, and I am so
Yes.
grateful for they all kind of took me under their wing to help me
Yes.
understand how China works, because it is, I
Mhm.
mean, I'd been to China
Yeah.
before, but I didn't fully understand. And so I am so grateful
Yeah.
to everyone I worked with who helped me as I grew and stretched.
Yeah, so many
But
challenges there too, because I remember we had to use a special VPN for them to be able to get access to our stuff and things. But yeah,
100%. Yes, absolutely. Yes. And I also was responsible for all aspects of R&D, including product management and design, as well as engineering.
wow,
Yeah, so it was
crazy.
definitely the biggest stretch of my career.
Man. So what did you learn? What leadership lesson did you learn during that time that's still useful to you today?
Oh, so many. I don't even know where to begin on that. Can you ask
One
a
or two?
slightly more precise question?
Yes. Okay. Which lesson has been the most impactful, or one of the most impactful?
Yeah, I actually I think that there were so many lessons, because there were so many challenges that we had. Just to explain to folks who might not understand, we uh, when I stepped into that organization, we were a very traditional enterprise software development organization. We were
Yeah.
shipping production quality, And like I said, these are mission critical enterprise shipping software. This is not a SaaS. This is not something where
Yes.
if we mess up, we can turn around and redeploy. It ships, it's in somebody else's data center. We don't even know how they're using it necessarily. In some cases, it was going into dark sites where we would have no ability to diagnose what was going on. So it had to be really, really solid. And the practices that we used when I got there, the practices that we were using were fairly traditional in terms of there's a bunch of engineering and then there's a bunch of testing and hardening, and then there would eventually be a release. And
Yes.
one of the products was shipping on about an annual cadence, and another one of the products, actually, I think it had been something like 2 or 3 years since they had had a general availability release. They had done
Wow.
patches, but they hadn't done a general availability release. And we were transforming the way the world builds software, including the way that we built software, because
Yes.
those products they grew up in other companies, and then they were part of a big
Wow.
Pivotal. The company that you joined was a big merger,
Yes.
an M&A project. It was throwing
VM,
together a bunch of
VMware
companies.
and Pivotal
Yeah.
Labs, right? Yeah.
So EMC had acquired Pivotal Labs and had also a bunch of other assets, and I'm not remembering which ones right now. And then VMware had Spring, Cloud Foundry.
Yeah, I remember those.
EMC had Greenplum, of course. What
Yeah.
was I
Yeah.
thinking? And that was one of the products that I was responsible for.
Yes.
So between EMC and VMware, they had basically said these things don't make any sense in our portfolio, so let's do a spin out combining these things, because there was already a tight financial
Yeah.
relationship between EMC and VMware. So they did this spin out. That
Plus,
spin out
plus
took the
Pivotal
name
Labs, right?
Pivotal. It took, Pivotal Labs belonged to EMC and it was part of the spin out. And
Yeah.
the thesis was, hey, modern software delivery practices with what Pivotal Labs does on a modern substrate of cloud with a data fabric, and the thesis all made sense together on a slide deck. But actually making it happen where things were integrated,
Wow.
that was the big M&A project. And so when I stepped into the role in data,
So
the
exciting.
data organization hadn't grown up in XP or Agile, or
Yeah.
it very traditional. So there are so many lessons there about
Man.
transformation, and I don't know how to pick one
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
transformation is not easy.
True, true. Yeah, that was really a great chance for me because I remember I was just coming off of active duty, and this was my first job in Silicon Valley. And this was the first time in my life I had actually 9 interviews before you guys hired me. I think you were one of the people who tortured me during the interview. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. But then I understood why it was so important for you guys to really get the right culture, right? Because usually in the military is not kind of top down and all of that. And yeah, so that didn't make much sense for Silicon Valley culture. But then later on, I figured out that the way we did software again at Pivotal, that's the way everybody was doing software everywhere, because I became a consultant, and all of the startup I went to, it was pretty much Pivotal, duplicated or cloned. So that was very helpful. But also, like you said, some company they only do software update like once a year or something. That's what the Navy did most of the time, maybe once a year or twice a year or something, waterfall type of thing. But you guys, for the most part, I think we're doing a sprint cycle like every 2 weeks. It's like, I'm like, how in the world are we going to be able to secure this code, and you have to publish them like on 2 week sprint cycle? I'm like, man, that is crazy. But anyway, that completely changed the way I looked at software ever since. But that was quite something. So you have led startup and publicly traded companies too. What leadership principle remain constant regardless of company size? And
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me this. and again, it's a little hard, but I do actually have an answer this time.
Okay.
And that is that you can't, no matter what the size is, you can't lead by telling people what to do.
Mm,
And I think that's one of the things that first-time leaders in particular
yes.
haven't really absorbed yet. Because every time I did that, and I made plenty of mistakes at Pivotal, and there were times when I would tell people what to do, and I'm pretty sure that they were all wrong. And instead, the important thing is to establish what I now call kind of the house of management. If you think of the
Yes.
roof as the goals, this is where we're trying to get to.
Mhm.
And then the walls are the constraints. These are the things that they are outside what we can do. So like we're going to
Yes.
bring Gemfire to the cloud, but what we're not going to do is rewrite all of Gemfire to make that happen. So that's the
Yes.
goal. Here's the constraint. And then you
Mhm.
have to build all of the house. It has to be on a solid
Yeah.
foundation of culture and trust and psychological safety. And so
Mhm.
and it is not okay to reach inside the windows as the
Yes.
leader and mess around inside the house, because what you're
Yes.
doing is you're creating the degrees of freedom, the space in which the people who report to
Mm.
you are going to be able to operate.
Yes.
It's totally fine if you're not getting what you need to shrink the house. Like, I mean, maybe it's a communication issue or maybe it's something, but you can say, all right, let's go for a smaller goal and tighter constraints to see if we can align and get where we need to
Mm.
go. And if you end up shrinking the house so small that it does feel
Yes.
like micromanagement, something has gone horribly wrong. And that's the point
Yes.
to start evaluating, what to do. But at no time is it okay
Mhm.
to reach inside those windows and start messing around.
Yes. That is so insightful. And you mentioned psychological safety. We talk about that quite a lot here. What is something you think as a leader you should do to enable a culture and environment where psychological safety is possible, like it was at Pivotal, I think?
Yeah, I think that there are a couple of things. One is to create space.
Yes.
And sometimes as a leader, it's so hard to do that,
Hmm.
but to create take a deep breath and just allow people to have the freedom to make mistakes. And then that's where
Yes.
the second part comes in. And that is to create a learning organization, which means that if people get their bets wrong, you don't come down on them like a ton of bricks and blame them like, why didn't you foresee
Yes.
that,
Yes.
or how could you have made that mistake?
Mm.
um,
Oh,
that doesn't mean we don't learn from whatever happened, but it does mean that, just I think Deming said to get blame out of the
yes.
system because it inhibits learning. So create the space so that people can learn, and
Hmm.
then don't mess up the learning by blaming them if things don't go exactly to plan.
I like that. And I also believe Pivotal was the first company I worked for too, where we started using OKR and KPI. We had like, goals for each quarter, and then we kind of break it down. That was so helpful to me because I've never really worked at a company that actually did that. It kind of forces you to actually, accomplish something. I mean, you're not always able to do everything that you plan, but at least you make a lot of progress as you plan your week and so forth. How do you build a culture where people not only work as hard as they can, but they actually want to be there? And I must remind you, one of the core value we had. First, I wonder if it was a joke because I think one of those core value you said Robert made. One of his value was dinner at home. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, 100%. We caught, especially on Cloud Foundry, came up through a different path than the
mhm.
data products. And I was part of the Cloud Foundry leadership team first. And we
Yeah.
we took all of the Pivotal Labs principles and practices, and we adapted them to shipping
Yes.
enterprise software, but they were all present. And part of
Mm.
that was we started every day at 8:55. Oh, sorry, no, 9:08. I got the times wrong.
Mhm.
Long time ago. But anyway, 9:08. What a weird time to hold
Yes.
stand up, right?
Yeah. For
Well,
15 minutes exactly, right? As
yeah.
I recall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was weird to me too.
So let's just call it 9 a.m. So
Yeah.
9 a.m. everybody starts. There's none of this roll into the office late because you were
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
late.
Daily stand up. Yeah.
Yeah, daily stand up starts at 9 a.m. and you go home at 6 p.m.
Yeah. That
And
was very something.
yeah, and that is so important because what that did for an extreme programming team, we were all co-located for the most
Hmm.
part with the people that we were working with. There were
Yeah.
exceptions, but
Yes.
mostly we're all working
Hmm.
with people who are right there. And that overlap meant that we could really optimize for collaboration
Yes.
during the day. And then
Love
a
that.
sustainable pace is absolutely critical.
Yes.
And to make it sustainable, you have to go home. Or you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here and put in those extra hours and burn yourself out, because that actually that is not only not doing the company a favor or doing you it's not doing you any favors, it's not doing your family any favors, but it's really not doing the company any favors,
So
because
true.
you're not going to be able to function for very long like that, and we want you to be able to function as well a year from now as you're functioning today.
Man, that is so powerful. Bob Vell was my boss. I remember the first vacation I took as a pivot. He told me not to take my laptop with me. I'm like, what? It's like, no, you're on vacation. Don't work. Don't call. No, unless somebody's gonna die or something. But yeah,
Right.
vacation. Enjoy your time off. That was the very first time in my entire career where I went on vacation without working at all. I was like, wow, that's something. And also during the stand up and everything that I felt was so important. I've never done that quite before. It also teaches you to be more humble, right? Because you can actually ask for help. Hey, this is what I'm working on. I am kind of stuck. Can somebody help me? And people will be willing to. I've never really seen that ever in my entire career. That's just so powerful. And by the way, we do have our mystery guest. He's in the green room. We're gonna be bringing him or her very very soon. I'm glad that he's there. We do have our first question from the audience. So Daniel Young from Metland, Florida, is saying, Elisabeth, in your work with signal and lever, how do you recommend leaders identify when a signal of organizational stress is an indicator of a degrading human firewall versus a purely technical failure? Question you want to take?
I love that question. I would actually love it if you'd be willing to bring on our surprise guest at this point, because this is directly related.
All right, let's see. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our surprise guest, the one and only Joe Halsey. Let's see if I can find him. Here he is. Hey, Joel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. I've been watching the whole episode. It's been wonderful the whole time through. And Elisabeth, I told you I know BASIC, so we can talk about BASIC all night.
Okay, well, maybe that'll be your next book.
I'm just telling Elisabeth, maybe I can convince you to come back, because I know you've published at least 2 or 3 other books. I'd like to have an hour just with you. It's just amazing the work that you guys are doing. So can you help us with this question from our live audience?
Yeah, the question from Daniel. It's a wonderful question. I mean, the interesting thing is that it could be an indicator of both. And because systems are systems, there aren't just one kind of attribute. I mean, they're influencing each other. And I think that's the beauty and the profoundness of systems thinking. The architecture could be challenging, which causes stress because we're trying to get stuff shipped. And that causes degrading morale and becomes all these intertwined factors. So we can't necessarily just pull one apart and say it's definitely that. I think the signal is what's important. And then, like, what do we do about it becomes a really interesting question.
I like that. Anything you would add, Elisabeth, to what...
Joel's answer was so much better than mine was. I was going to go into a deep dive of, well, it depends on which signals you're seeing and here, and it would have taken forever and not gotten to the point as well as Joel did.
Yes. Okay. Since Joel is here, let's talk about this book. I know it's going to be a best-selling book. So the book we are talking about, yes, that one, Signal Lever, System Thinking Tools to Unblock Software Delivery. And I know it's going to be available in the fall. September when?
September 22nd.
22nd. Wow, that is... But you can pre-order right now. Go to Amazon. It is available for pre-order. Okay, I guess the first question I have to ask the both of you is, why did this book have to be written?
I'll take my stab at it, Elisabeth, and you can chime in. So just to kind of set context, we've both been in a lot of organizations where at the end of the day, everybody wants to help each other, right? And so it's kind of like, I think for a period of time, I work a lot with teams. I work a lot with the managers, a lot with executives, and I'd be with a lot of teams, and they would say things like, the managers just don't get it. Like, they're doing these things to us. That's the problem. The middle management and the they're the problem. You talk to the managers, and they would say things like, I don't understand why the team doesn't understand the problems I'm facing. And so everybody wanted the best thing for each other, but usually what was happening, it was actually hindering each other because they weren't kind of understanding the system at play. And so for me, like, this book needed to be written as a way of maybe stopping the arguing. That sounds too utopic, but I mean, it's really to get people to see the same reality and work and work together on the problem as opposed to like trying to optimize individually.
Okay, what about you, Elizabeth? What leadership problem kept showing up over and over again that convinced you that this book needed to be written?
Well, I'm going to answer the question from a completely different dimension, and both
Yes.
things are true. So there's a long origin story that gets us to this point where
Mhm.
I got to appreciate a class that Joel had designed on systems thinking that was focused around causal diagrams and variability with Shewhart charts, process control charts, and
Yes.
U-curves. And those three tools were self-reinforcing in ways that I had never seen
Mhm.
before. And I think the point at which I said, hey, Joel, I think we need to turn this into a book was when I
Yes.
really appreciated the extent to which Joel had pulled together such an interesting collection of tools. And the first version of what we thought we were writing
Mhm.
was named the Thinking Leaders Toolkit, because it really was a toolkit of things that came together. But then as we started working on the book, it became more than just a toolkit of, well, this looks like a job for a U-curve, and became much more of a holistic view. But I still think that the book needed to be written because I am
Mhm.
unaware of any other books that pull together
Yes.
the
Yes.
concepts along with concrete tools that you can use to apply the concepts
Yes.
in a way that is genuinely a holistic and a holistic full viewpoint on systems
Mhm.
thinking applied to software development. And Joel deserves a massive amount of credit for having identified the right set of tools that form the core of that.
That is really insightful. Even the title itself, right? Signal and lever. So, what are leaders missing? So, maybe Elizabeth, you can explain the signal part. Maybe our executive misread organizational health, and Joel, maybe you can explain the lever part, right? Our coaches identify leverage point and what actually changes system. So fascinating.
Yeah, signals. I've I didn't have the right vocabulary at the time, but for years and years and years, I have thought in terms of signals. I just didn't have the
Mhm.
right vocabulary for it. And they surround us. It's not just the dashboards and you've got your Dora metrics, or you're doing whatever process and it's got
Mhm.
those metrics. It's not just that. It's also when you can't find time to meet except on no meeting Fridays because everybody's calendar is so jammed up. That is a signal. Something
Yes.
is up in the organization. It's not a diagnostic, it's a signal. Or the extent to which decisions get delayed until things become a crisis. That is both a choice that people are making, but also the
Hmm.
fact that they feel compelled to do so. That is a
Yes.
signal. So signals can be quantitative, they can be qualitative, and you are 100% surrounded by signals all the time. The challenge is
Mhm.
figuring out what are they trying to tell you, and how do you filter out the ones that are not providing useful information, because they're actually, even if they're on your dashboard, if they're not helping you make better decisions, they're probably noise.
So true. What about you, Joel?
Yeah, I mean, Elizabeth nailed it with the signals. It's how we reason with complex systems.
What about the lever?
Yeah, on the lever side, the levers are really just the things, the decisions we make to try and influence the system at large. We would be remiss if we didn't mention Elizabeth and I were both highly influenced by Danella Meadows and a bunch of her groundbreaking work in systems thinking. And in
Mhm.
one of her, call it a metaphor or call it her frame, she talks about 9 levels or 10 levels of levers in the system and various kind of leverage points. And so what we were trying to get across with levers is that when you're trying to influence the system, you're in essence pulling a lever. Now, kind of like how much leverage you get kind of depends
Mhm.
upon a multitude of things and where you're acting in the
Wow.
system and your relative control. And so it's a really beautiful metaphor. I think another
Yes.
takeaway we'd like for all the readers to get out of it is even if you don't think you have levers available to you, you probably do. Like,
I
and
like
so
that.
sometimes it's like talking to, like, if I'm working with the team members and they're complaining about, or they're challenged by all of the meetings they're in, it's
Yes.
like, well, you don't have to go to that meeting. Well, what do
Yes.
you mean I don't have to go? You could make that decision if
Mhm.
it's not helpful to you. And sometimes just like those simple small things become like
Yeah.
this
Oh,
mind-blowing moment for a team that feels stressed and they say,
yeah.
well, yeah, I could skip that meeting and
Or maybe
actually
just send an email, right?
yeah. So levers are all around us, and it's just kind of being aware of the levers we're pulling and the influence we're trying to have.
Well, and
Yeah.
if I may, I'd love to
Please.
interject with a story from Pivotal that I think is going to help you see, Bob, why I was unable to answer your question about like one lesson.
Yeah.
So, there was this meeting that I was invited to. I was in a leadership position. I debated about whether or not to go. It seemed to be a huge meeting, and I really wasn't sure what my role was. But I decided that I was going to go because I did not want to send the message that this meeting is not important. And I felt that if I didn't go, I would be sending a message. So I
Yes.
went. And within the first 5 minutes, it became very apparent to me that I could not offer value in this meeting, and that in fact, my presence might prevent value from happening because, again, I was in a position of positional authority. So my voice would carry more weight, and I didn't actually know enough to be contributing to this discussion. And so I found a good time, like very early into this meeting. It was within the first 10 minutes to basically stand up and say, look, this is a critically important meeting. I want you to have it. You need to continue having this discussion. However, I'm going to invoke the open space law of mobility that says if you're not going to get value, and again, this is an important meeting, it's just that for me personally, you need to figure this stuff out.
I love that.
And if I'm not going to give value, and I am here to tell you, I have nothing helpful for you. So I'm going to hope I don't offend you, but I'm going to slink away. And I did. And I tried to do it in as respectful a way as I could. And I was really afraid that somehow that was going to break the spell and they wouldn't stick with the meeting. And most of the people stayed, but one person snuck out right after me, like didn't even let the door close, was right on my heels, and turned to me.
Your permission to do so.
And turned to me and said, "It never occurred to me."
Yes.
And so in that moment, this other person had a realization that then they carried forward with them, that they are not actually being summoned every time there is a meeting invitation. They have a choice that they can make. And that is one of those, it's a tiny lesson, but making people aware when they have choices is a leadership lesson.
Absolutely. And I must ask you, all of the companies I've worked at in Silicon Valley, Pivotal was definitely one of the best one. More fun. It was really great. Did you guys go to some type of leadership training or school? Because the emotional intelligence I noticed at Pivotal was much higher than most other companies I've ever worked for in the Valley.
So there was eventually a leadership development program, but I think that it occurred after you had already left. And so what I think you were observing, because I think your department, I remember working with Bob, what a wonderful person. And I remember working with your organization. And I think that a lot of the people that you were interacting with were coming from that legacy of a very humanistic style of management that stemmed from Pivotal Labs and the influence that then Labs had throughout the rest of the organization.
Really impactful. It was what, 12 years ago, and I still remember it. All right, so let me ask you this then. Let's talk about executive versus coach. So we have the executive here and the coach right there. So as a VP for R&D, what question were you asking when you were writing the book? And Joel, just so that you can start thinking about it, walking into organization as an outside coach, what different question were you asking?
So I'm not 100% sure I know how to answer this question, but I will say that I was trying to put myself back in that seat, which I'm not in today, but I occupied for long enough and work with enough other executives that one of the things I really wanted for the book was that it would speak to executives and help them with figuring out how to reason about these really gnarly system problems. Because that's one of the challenges is recognizing when the thing that you are seeing is just one slice of it, and the influences that then influence each other and influence the slice you see. Being able to reason your way through to figure out how to detect when the system is influencing itself, or put another way, you poke the system and the system's going to poke back. And I think that executives sometimes have a tendency to kind of suffer a little bit from the illusion of control because they have positional authority. So they have the authority to say how things should be. Only you poke the system and the system is going to poke back. And so that was part of what I was trying to bring to writing this book, was that perspective, and hope that we would be able to get through to executives who want to believe that their positional authority allows them to control things.
So, Joel, as an outside coach, what different question were you trying to answer?
I think there's probably two questions that I try and get across. Many organizations I come into, they want to, of course, ship software faster.
Mm-hmm.
And the easiest question is, and then what happens? And then they say, well, then we have more software out there. and then what happens? And so like there's this kind of like, tail wagging the dog effect. Like if we only had more software, we would then be better.
Yes.
But there's no data to back up any of that. Like there's no realization if like the software is highly valued as it is, or there are small things that should be removed because they're confusing. So I always find that interesting. And I also find it interesting when I'm actually working with teams and they're trying to get stuff done. And sometimes we just ask them things like, what is harder than it should be? Because you see a lot of teams that they're just so used to like the noise of how the system works. They just kind of get used to dealing with it. And you just kind of say like, what would be nice if it wasn't so hard? And they'll say things like, well, I got to go kick the Kubernetes cluster every 2 days. I don't know why, but like they spend all this time, on things that they just wish it was easier. And they once you start surfacing that, those are the things that sometimes the managers don't see. Is they don't see the friction and the hard things that should be easy that the teams are dealing with. So instead of even worrying about why can't the team go faster or how to write better stories or any of that other stuff, it's just what's harder than it should be. Because software should be fun, and the creative stuff should be the fun stuff. It shouldn't be go kick Kubernetes again.
I like you actually made me think, because for some people, they should probably even ask themselves, is what I'm doing even needs to be done? Or they should really be doing something else right now. That's incredible. So were there moments while writing the book where the two of you disagreed? I'm sure there was at least one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me please share. It looks like Elisabeth has something to say for sure. Please share.
I'm gonna sure. I'll share it. I'm not gonna say this one's a true disagreement, but it was definitely one of those moments of wait a minute. So Joel, I had just attended one of Joel's trainings on U-curves, and we needed to write some content on U-curves, and I totally see the value in U-curves, but Joel had this slide where he said, okay, and so then...
Did you have a but, Joel? She said but, okay.
I did. Okay, so this is, here's a U-curve. This is what it looks like. This is what it means. This is how you think about it. And then you can create your own, just blah, blah, blah. And I don't remember the blah, blah, blah. But I remember my brain breaking at just. That's why I don't remember the blah, blah, blah. Because I tried to follow. I couldn't. I could not figure this out. And so I reached out after that was a class. And so I reached out and we were already writing stuff. But I said, hey, Joel, I'm confused. Yes. How do I just blah, blah, blah? And he said, and I think both of us thought that this was just going to be a matter of, I didn't get it. And so Joel was just going to help me get it, and it would take 20 minutes and it'd be fine. 3 hours later,
wow,
we were still arm wrestling. And ultimately I feel like this is a great example of our collaboration, because there were many times when we would end up saying, I think we need to arm wrestle over this one. And that wasn't about having a conflict together. It was more about recognizing where we hadn't fully figured things out together yet in a way that we both could represent. And so our U-curve material did end up so much better as a result of the collaboration in ways that it would not have, I think, if either one of us had gone off on our own to try to figure stuff out.
That's really cool. Anything you would add, Joe?
The U-curve is a great example. I think there was other examples where there were parts of the book that Elisabeth would write or I would write that we would be just so like emotionally attached to, and then the other person would be like, "I'm going to cut that. I'm gonna remove that." And why are you removing that? It's so beautiful. And so then we would talk about kind of like what's the essence of the chapter, what's the core. Like we were it's almost like haiku. We were trying to remove it down to the essence over and over again. And then one other thing, which Elisabeth I know is aware of, there was, and I did it once or twice also, but I recall one Friday where Elisabeth was like, I'm going to do open heart surgery on this part of the book. And it was like, what do you, like, it was 2 weeks before it was due. Yeah. And she was like, I got a vision. And it worked out wonderfully. She was right. Yeah. But I remember thinking like, I'm going to step away for a couple of days. I don't want to see what's going on.
Yeah. Wow,
Joel, you
that's-
should talk about radar charts.
There was radar chart problems too. Yes.
yeah, that almost made me think of my marriage. I've been married for 25 years now with my wife. I think we are quite complementary. That's some things I do that just drive her crazy and nuts, and vice versa. But I can see how you can be very, very scared. Oh my goodness, what are you going to do? It's time to publish. Let's talk about artificial intelligence for just a moment. Everywhere, everybody's talking about AI. No, I've been speaking publicly now for maybe about 10, 12 years now. The last 3 or 4 years, all we talk about for cybersecurity is AI this, AI that. So AI is accelerating software development, that's for sure. What signal have become even more important? I guess, Elisabeth, if you can tackle like executive governance, decision making, or risk, and then Joel maybe engineering practices, learning, and developer workflow and delivery. So the question is, signals have become even more important because of AI. Which
Oh, that's a really good deep question.
yeah.
So let me unpack the chain that is going on in my head right now as
Mhm.
I unfold that question, which is so incredibly deep. If you're an executive and you're getting all of these signals everywhere that
Yeah.
what everybody else's organization is getting 10x productivity from these
I
AI
think
tools.
there is the FOMO to what fear of missing out. I think is playing a big part right now.
Oh, FOMO is definitely playing a huge thing. Or you're an executive, and both things can be true simultaneously, but I still want to go to, or you're an executive and your company is making a huge investment. Your token costs are through the roof and you're starting
Yeah.
to wonder, what value are we getting? In both cases, there, the fear of missing
Mhm.
out on the value, or the
Yeah.
fear that we have just spent an enormous amount of money and are
Mm.
not yet seeing the value. So this is all unfolding in my head as I think about your question, and what signals as an executive should you be looking for to
Mhm.
figure out what potential value is there, and then to figure out if you make an investment, are you actually getting the value? And I think that one of the things that I've been seeing happen, I will make fun of token leaderboards all day long because that
Yeah.
was the worst signal ever. Or
Yeah.
executives in positions of power were saying our organization
Mhm.
isn't adopting fast enough, so therefore we're going to put an incentive
Mhm.
and we're going to see, are we adopting fast enough? But those signals were not tied to the ultimate outcome that they wanted. And so I think that as an executive, you actually
Mm.
probably should not be changing which signals you're looking at so much that you lose
Yes.
sight of the outcomes that you're trying to get to, regardless of the tool chain that
Yeah.
you're using to get to those outcomes.
Business outcome. That is so wonderful. What would you add, Joel?
I'd probably echo a lot of stuff what Elisabeth said. I think what's interesting is that AI has become almost like the solution instead of kind of like the, kind of saying what's in essence the problem we're trying to have. This is
Yes.
where I think a lot of the system tools come back into place, because like if your challenge is in the rate of software delivery, if you're putting AI in to make code creation quicker, but the problem isn't code creation, the problem is testing or packaging or reasoning or understanding requirements, then you're amplifying the wrong, you're pulling the wrong lever, right?
Yes.
You're acting in the wrong part of the system. And so I think it comes down to understanding the root of the problem. AI, if you have a legacy system that's hard to reason with, instead of having AI write code, you might have AI inspect the code, and you could ask it questions to help you reason about it, so you
Yes.
don't amplify the wrong problem. So I think it comes down to, kind of understanding the outcome you're going for, just like you're both saying, but then also understanding where your problem is to make sure you don't amplify the wrong area.
I love it. So we are already running out of time. I can't believe this. It's like we just got started. My goodness. All right. So let's do this lightning round on the book, at least the content. I will definitely make sure to write a great review whenever it comes out. So lightning round. So give me whatever comes to your mind as quickly as you can. Don't elaborate. Don't think like a professor. Just give it to me right away. Okay. First question. Let's start with Joel. What do you think is the most dangerous engineering metric?
Code coverage.
What about you, Elisabeth? Do you agree? Something else?
Count of PRs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh.
What's the most misunderstood DevOps idea, Elisabeth?
Oh, do Joel first. I got a tip of my
Okay,
tongue,
Joel.
but
Joel, most misunderstood DevOps idea.
I think the cycle time is, you can have really low cycle time and really high lead time and don't
Sure.
matter. Yeah.
All right. So, Elizabeth, let me ask you this one. What is one thing every CIO or CTO should stop doing tomorrow?
Oh, should stop doing tomorrow? Blaming people. Seriously. It's not helping you, man. It's well, I mean that in a very gender neutral
Yes.
kind of way. It is
Yes.
not helping you.
Joel?
I would say tampering in the kind of
Yes.
classical Deming sense
We
of
did.
the word. Yeah.
We talked about it like you put your hand in the house and you just mess everything up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Tampering.
what is one thing every engineer or manager should start doing Monday morning, Joel?
Studying the system. Studying the signals.
Elizabeth?
Yes, and look at signals that you probably haven't been looking at before, perhaps starting with conversations with your engineers about what signals do you pay attention to, to go beyond what you usually see.
All right. So, let me ask this then. Joel, what is something that Elizabeth taught you while writing this book?
Oh, geez. She taught me a myriad of things. She did this beautiful, deep research in every single sentence that we did. And I mean that in the most kind way. I think that one of the wonderful things that she brought, and I learned from her, was this whole idea of context and context mapping and visualizing context. And context is the cumulative effect of previous decisions. It's just such a great metaphor, and visualizing it is amazing. Yeah.
Okay, so Elizabeth, what idea from Joel changed your own thinking?
Variability. So I had encountered process control charts in the 1990s applied in ways that I did not feel actually were useful, and I had dismissed them entirely. And Joel had a very different perspective on Shewhart charts in particular, and how to use them to see variability in the system, and then how to interpret that. And I am forever changed and grateful.
All right, and I see that the first name is Elisabeth Hendrickson, and Joel, you are the second name. It may not mean anything, but I was a PhD student. The first name on the paper usually means the most. So this question is going to go to Elisabeth. I think she's the boss for the book. So Elisabeth, the question for you then. The book is written by you and Joel, I think equally. How did you guys come to speak with one voice? What was that process like?
Oh, so iteratively. I mean, it's a good thing we started from a place of being extremely aligned. Joel and I have known each other for over 15 years at this point, and we knew that we were philosophically aligned. But holy snacks, we thought this was going to be like a 6-month project, and 2 years later, we finally submitted the final manuscript that was, spoiler, not the final manuscript. So it was a lot of iteration.
So, Joel, you kind of answered that a little bit earlier, but when you guys did disagree or were disagreeable, how did you guys come to resolve whatever issue?
Honestly, a lot of Zoom meetings, and we would just, in essence, it's almost like a Mary Parker Follett thing of like, we were trying to figure out the route of, like, we were going to the same place, and we could acknowledge we were going to the same place, and so we would try and find where we were deviating from.
Yes.
And then that's where the conversation would start. We want to get to the same place. I'm going this way, you're going that way. Kind of like, how do we resolve that? We spent countless hours on Zoom going through stuff, drawing, modeling, everything.
What was one of the most challenging chapter to write, Joel?
I want to say the ending was hard to write, at least for me, because it was like we felt like we gave all these solid ideas, and now it was like,
how to conclude.
And now it's in your hands, right? So and now what do you need to do with it? I felt like I didn't want it to end, and so we have ideas for other books, but I think the ending was difficult for me. What about you, Elisabeth?
Yeah, what about you?
I think it was less at a chapter level and more at an organizational level, because these ideas are all self-reinforcing. It is a cloud of interconnected concepts, and figuring out how to present that in the linear manner that books require, because they're going to have pages and pages. This is a dead tree edition. You can't link from one thing to the next thing. And so figuring out how to sequence it, that's why there were times when I said, okay, I'm going to do open heart surgery. Don't panic. Because I realized that there was another way to lay out the linear progression that would allow that laddering up more effectively.
So powerful. Okay. I know we almost out of time. Can I get a couple more minutes before we end? This is going to be the last question I'm going to ask about the book. So basically, I have two audiences I care the most about: people from the military and people from Silicon Valley. So I'm going to ask you to imagine you're speaking to three people. One is a Navy lieutenant, so a new department head leading the very first division. One is a new engineering manager, let's say at Pivotal. And one is a first-time executive, like chief technology officer. So, what is one signal each should pay attention to, and what's the one lever they can pull tomorrow? So, if Elisabeth can talk about the signal and Joel about the lever for the Navy lieutenant, new engineering manager, and new chief technology officer.
I'm going to confess that I have not been in the military, and I am underqualified to presume to tell somebody in that situation about a signal. But instead, I'm going to answer all three at once and say that the qualitative human signals, the understanding when somebody is hesitating, really paying attention to the emotional overlay in the message, trying to understand what values they're representing when they say something. I think that those signals are underutilized and really important.
Now, I know for first-time manager, that's why I say new lieutenant to become a division head or department head. There's a lot of, I think, like when you do it for the first time, for most people, a lot of doubt, and sometimes they call it imposter syndrome. How would you deal with that, Elisabeth? What would you advise them?
So I would advise them to honor that internal feeling, but recognize that I call them the brain weasels. We all have brain weasels. They crawl around in our brains and they whisper things to us like, "You didn't really earn that promotion."
Yeah.
They whisper things that are just so devastating, and they come from. Highly recommend therapy. I think therapy is great. Therapy is a great way to deal with brain weasels. But even without going to somebody else outside, recognizing that is a weasel speaking. There might be something that I need to listen to underneath the message, but it's still a weasel speaking, and I can ignore the weasels right now. So park the weasels long enough so that you don't let that like defensiveness build up, because then that interferes with your ability to engage with the outside world, outside of your head, the world that isn't listening to your inner weasels.
Now, this is not exactly from film book, but since you are a woman, and I don't know if you remember, I think it was in 2014, I was at Pivotal when, I can't remember which company it was, they had an ad about a software engineer, but they had a picture of a woman instead of a man. And some of my friends at Pivotal, they just freaked out. They didn't think a woman could be an engineer. I'm like, hey, what about Elisabeth? Are you guys crazy? But anyway.
I'm sorry, I'm having a whole series of responses internally right now because I was wildly unaware, but that's all right. Keep going with your question.
But I guess the question I am going to ask you is, being a first, whether you are the only woman in the room or the only Black person or the only gay or whatever it might be, what would you advise to somebody who is a first, who now has a position of leadership, but they look around, everybody is a white male, and they feel like they don't really belong. But like you say, they are very, very smart. They have all of the credential, education. They can do the job. That's why they were selected. But there's just that extra, like, maybe I don't really belong here. And I'm sure you've been in many rooms where you were female.
100%. And I'm so glad that you said, or the first Black person, or the first, because being the only of anything that is visually identifiable in some way can, or even if it's not, but you still feel like you're isolated, like that is a terrible feeling. So my advice really boils down to, number one, you belong. Like those brain weasels, just park the brain weasels and instead remind yourself that you got here for some reason that is valid. Even if you can't articulate it to yourself, just remind yourself, I am here because I belong. And it might feel disingenuous. I don't care. I am here because I belong. If you keep telling yourself that internally, it feels so much better than wondering, why am I here and I don't belong? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, so many times I know that I was treated differently because of my gender. People made assumptions about my lack of credentials. People made assumptions about what I knew or didn't know. People assumed I was in marketing. I'm actually terrible at marketing. So the assumptions that people make about you, internally, I knew you're assuming that because I present in a certain way. And but I learned that one weird tricks is just suspend disbelief and pretend that they're not treating you like that for the reason that you believe, and even though they may very well be. But this one weird trick, it allowed me to not react like so dismissively that I eliminate any possibility of finding a path forward. And so those two weird tricks of park the brain weasels and keep telling myself I belong, and then assume that they would treat me the same way regardless of how I presented myself, and that it's not about inherent attributes that I cannot change,
I like that.
enabled me to navigate in spaces that were frankly very difficult, even at Pivotal, but especially in my life before Pivotal.
All right, Joel, which level you think the young lieutenant, first-time manager, or chief technology officer should pull?
So it's almost a non-answer. A word and a term that Elizabeth and I stumbled on in the book was this idea of pausation. And so pausation is intentionally not making a decision because you should not make a decision right now. There's that famous saying, even if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice, right? But like this is, I think the reaction is for a lot of executives, whether they're new or seasoned, is see problem, solve problem. Sometimes the best thing to do is just take a step back and say, don't need to solve it yet. Like, is it an anomaly? Is it just the way things are right now? Is there something else causing it? And I think that pausation is a lever saying, I'm intentionally choosing not to do something right now. That is a powerful lever.
So powerful. Because I think most of us, we kind of just automatically react to whatever's happening. We don't take time to actually think and respond. That's so powerful. Okay, I know I've already used too much time. We need to shut down this podcast soon, but I do want to ask about Gene, because he is a living legend in my book. Gene Kim wrote the foreword. His work has shaped how many of us think about flow, DevOps, and organizational performance. And by the way, I'm trying to get him on this podcast. Please have Jim come, even if for just 30 minutes, I'm going to be so happy. So how did the idea from Jim really influence Signal and Lever, and where does this book intentionally extend or challenge the thinking established in works like the Phoenix Project or Accelerate?
Yeah, I can I take this one, Joel?
Please.
Because I know that we're going to wrap up. I'm going to say I don't think it challenges. I think it very much is aligned with. And the Phoenix Project is really about the key DevOps principles and agile principles, fast feedback, and avoiding single points of failure, and so on and so forth, and done in a beautiful narrative style. I remember I had not read the book. I found myself on a panel with Gene Kim, so I read the book in preparation for the panel, and I was so upset with myself that I had not read it earlier, because it is so amazingly good.
Yes.
But there is a tie-in. He has a character, Sarah, who I am frankly obsessed with, because she's the evil villain. And I sat down once with Gene at a lunch and was talking to him about, okay, you have to tell me more about Sarah.
Yes.
Like, what school did she go to? What books are on her bookshelf? Because she's the evil villain, but I could tell there was so much more there. And he basically said, well, I don't know what's on her bookshelf. And so we with Gene's permission did borrow the character of Sarah and one of the other characters, but it's really that scene in our book is about Sarah. And so our book, the fictional company, their Limitless Systems, does live in the same world as Parts Unlimited. You'll note the limit connection between the names. And I was really hoping to be able to do even more with Sarah in the future, because Joel and I know what our next book is going to be.
Okay, I was going to say next book. Good.
So we'll see how because the extension isn't it definitely all of the ideas belong together and mutually support each other, but also there's a little bit of world building extension happening.
Yes. Well, everybody, the book is Signal and Levers, available everywhere books are sold. You can pre-order right now. It's going to be released September the 22nd, right? Yes. So every good thing needs to come to an end. So as we come to an end, Elisabeth, can you please let us know what can my audience do for you?
Oh, well, I'm so grateful if anybody wants to do stuff for me, but
How can we add value back to you?
I would love to issue an invitation. Joel and I are doing a lightning lesson on Maven tomorrow. It's free. It's a 1 hour session.
Mhm.
That's it. Please come. It's an invitation. I would love to see folks from here there.
And yeah, completely free, and you can sign up, and I would have the link in the note of the podcast. Of course, I want everybody to get a copy of the book. The one we're talking about is this one, Signal and Levers. I know it's going to be a best-selling book. Now, can you imagine? I had thought we might have time to actually talk about Explore It, but there is no way. But get a copy of that too. It's available everywhere books are sold. Now, you do have another book that you wrote a long time ago. There's Always a Duck, pretty much a collection of your essay. It's only available on a specific website. Again, I will have the link in the notes. But the one book we want everybody to buy now, I think you need pre-orders, right? Signal and Levers, please. Anything else my audience can do for you?
You all are so awesome. Thank you so much.
What about if someone wanted to hire you? Is curiousduck.io the best place to find you?
That's the best place to find me.
All right. So as we come to an end, let me see. Wow, this has been better than I actually had hoped. One last question I would like to ask before I let you go, Elisabeth, is knowing what you know now, if you could go back, I would say maybe 17, 18, 19-year-old, what would you say to the teenager Elisabeth? Knowing what you know now, what would you have advised her?
Oh, so many things. But the one thing in particular that I wish I had been better and more disciplined at that age academically. And so I would have a really good heart-to-heart sit-down chat once, we got over the sci-fi moment of, wait, you're me from the future, what? And why should I listen to you? You must be crazy. Once we got past that, having a sit-down heart-to-heart chat about, all right, let's talk about how college is different from high school.
Yes.
And what you need to do to prepare. That is probably the conversation that I would have had with myself. I wasted so much time, and now I wish I do kind of wish I had the time machine and could go back and actually have the experience in a very different way than I did. I squandered opportunities.
That is really awesome. And this question is going to be a little bit selfish, right? I have 2 daughters. I kind of joke it wasn't for our family dog, I would be the only male in my household. But this was you when you were 17, 18, long time ago. What about my daughter? One of them just graduated from college last year. It's really tough for her to find a job with AI taking away all of the entry level job and the age we are living in now. What would you advise a young woman who's about to get started? They want to get into science, technology, just like you. That's why I like to talk to people like you, so my daughter has somebody to look up to. Yes, it is possible, right? So what would you advise a young woman who wants to get into tech and become a vice president like you did in this pretty competitive world with AI taking away all of the entry level job? What's your advice for them?
The world is definitely changing. And I totally get the very young, younger, I say very, I'm an old, but the younger people, graduates who are booing the commencement speakers. I get it, but we're in another industrial revolution, whether or not we like it. Now, that said, this is the same advice I would give to anyone, regardless of gender or anything else. And that is that the skills of being able to think critically and reason about problems and apply logic, as in the philosophy logic sense of the word, and write clearly. Those skills were important before. They're absolutely critical now, because they're how you get your humanness out into a world where increasingly things are being generated by LLMs, and how you really leverage AI as a tool,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just kind of letting AI slop, run amok.
Yes.
And so liberal arts classes turn out to be really important for people who are going into STEM. Honestly, it was always true, but it's even more true now. And I love philosophy majors.
Yes. Wow, that is a great place to end. And sorry, I've taken so much of your time already, but I would like to end on a positive note. Anything that you are feeling optimistic about these days?
On my good days, I am optimistic about our future because I do genuinely believe that we are going to be capable of doing things that we never thought possible before,
Yes.
through the appropriate application
Yes.
of AI as a tool. We'll
Mhm.
be able to reach farther. Those are on my good days. So I'll say today's a great day, and I'm optimistic about our future as a species.
Fantastic. I love it. Okay, last question. One word that represent our shared experience on this podcast today, including the time we had with Joel.
One word?
Mhm.
Amazing.
Wow, that means a lot coming from you. Well, I am so grateful. The one and only Elisabeth Hendrickson, thank you so much for being our master teacher today. And I hope to see Joel here live for an hour. I want to talk to him, but this is just wonderful. And help me get Jim here, please, please. I want to talk to the legend, the man, the myth. That's going to be, because part of the reason why I am doing this about 5 years ago, it's kind of like, I'm like, okay, I've already, attained my American dream. I started in the military as a, seaman recruit E1, lowest level in military. Today I'm a commander, if you can believe that. No, senior officer in the most powerful navy in the world. Only 2 promotions away from becoming a flag officer, from being an admiral. I can't even believe it myself. And of course, when I started, I think Pivotal was the first one when I came to Silicon Valley. I was a senior security engineer there, but my last job, I was a chief information security officer for Santa Clara University. So anyway, I've done everything I wanted to do. So right now I'm really trying to think and focus on the future, right? We're talking about the future military leaders, the future CISOs, the future tech, the future VP of R&D in Silicon Valley. I really want them to get those leadership lessons from giants and legends like you. So that's why I feel like this is so important to do. I only have 1 hour with you, but thank you for giving me an extra 17 minutes. I really, really appreciate that. So I'm so grateful. Thank you again, Elisabeth. Really a great pleasure to be reconnecting with you.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you.
All right, everybody. I want everyone to get a copy of the book. You can pre-order it today. Signal and Levers, everywhere books are sold. System Thinking, Tools to Unblock Software Delivery by Elisabeth Hendrickson and Joel Tosi. So everyone should get a copy. Let's help make it a bestseller for sure. And also follow Elisabeth on LinkedIn. So that's linkedin.com in Test Obsessed. I love that moniker. And a website if you want to hire curiousdirk.io. And tomorrow there's going to be a completely free webinar, which is going to give with Joel. And the way you register, just go to maven.com, signals and levers, and you're going to be able to register and attend the webinar for free. I hope to see you there. Okay, as we end the show, I want to remind you that tomorrow I will have 2 interviews. First, I'm going to be speaking to Shakita Trigg. She's a certified AI consultant, AI and technology architecture executive. You don't want to miss this. And then later, tomorrow afternoon, I will be speaking to a fellow commander, U.S. Navy, Commander Arthur Billingsley. He's now a business leader, a strategy executive consultant. And this is going to be a great time. We're going to be talking about leadership principles that help them achieve the success they have so far. And as we end the show, as you know, I love to end with what I call Black History Year, because I felt like 28 days is the shortest month in the year. It's just too short. So today, our profile in Courage, we are celebrating the life and the legacy of Lawrence Brooks. And Lawrence Brooks is really America's oldest known World War II veteran and the nation's oldest living man when he passed away January 5th, 2022, at the remarkable age of 112 years old. When he joined the army was segregated. Black and white didn't mix, and black were inferior to white back then. So we've come a very, very long way, and I do feel like I do stand on the shoulders of giants. There would be no Commander Bob Zinga in the Navy if there wasn't a private Lawrence. So I want to honor his life. So I'm going to play this quick video to honor him, and then we are going to meet again, I hope, tomorrow. Let me make sure I get this. Oh, sorry, I thought this was already set up. Okay.
And it's not just the White House. Professor Holland tells us enslaved labor was also used to build the United States Capitol, the very seat of democracy, including the iconic dome.
From the bottom floors all the way to the Statue of Freedom sitting on top, it would not be there without the blood, sweat, and tears of enslaved Africans.
In fact, between 1792 and 1829, more than 200 enslaved individuals helped build both structures, though experts believe it was many more.
It gives us a little bit of ownership of the president's house because it's written right here.
It's unbelievable.
Professor Holland took Ashley and Jackie around the Capitol.
This mall was nothing like we see today.
To help them envision what it looked like some 200 years ago. Back then, Washington, D.C. had become a hub of the domestic slave trade, a place where human beings were bought and sold in the shadow of the nation's most powerful institutions.
All of this was more of a slave market. There were slave markets over on Pennsylvania Avenue, and despite it being the nation's front yard, enslaved Africans were brought down to this area and were sold. One of the more famous places they had slave sales was over near the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. It's called Roby's Tavern.
Back in the day, slave pens and markets would have been seen on both sides of the National Mall. For enslaved laborers like Calvert Ambush, there were also no formal accommodations.
The slaves that were used in the construction of the White House, they of course didn't live in the White House.
Yeah.
They lived right outside. All of the area you see behind us when they were constructing the U.S. Capitol, it was actual slave tent city.
Enslaved laborers split the stone at nearby quarries, transporting it upriver and towing it to Washington, where they built roofs, walls, and columns.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh,
give me liberty or give me death. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. We at last, we at last, we at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
I'll be buried in my own grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leadership and Success Podcast with your host, Coach BZ. If today's episode added value to your leadership journey, be sure to subscribe, share, and join us again for more wisdom nuggets on how to lead better and achieve greater success. Remember, leadership is the most critical skill of our time. The world will always need leaders to inspire others, drive innovation, and execute meaningful strategy. So why not count yourself among the bold leaders shaping the 21st century? Until next time, stay inspired, stay committed, and keep leading with excellence.